The sun was going down. You know that time when everything gets kind of orange and the day just stops? That's when it happened. There was this parking lot, pretty empty. Just had a few Harley bikes sitting there looking all shiny, chrome reflecting the last bits of sunlight. 5 guys were standing around. Big guys. The kind you see and think twice before making eye contact, you know? Leather vests that looked like they'd been through some stuff. Arms full of tattoos. They were just talking, laughing about something stupid probably. Just guys being guys. Nothing special about the moment, really. And then this girl came running up. She was small. Maybe 12, could have been younger. Her dress was ripped at the bottom. Dirt all over her knees like she'd been running through hell itself. Hair was everywhere. Face all red and wet from crying. She was breathing so hard it looked like she might pass out any second. But she didn't stop. She ran straight up to the biggest one there, guy named Axel, and grabbed onto his vest with both her little hands. The way she looked at him, though. Man. It was the kind of look that just hits you somewhere deep. "Please," she said, voice all shaky and broken. "They took my brother. Everything just stopped right there. The laughing, the talking, all of it. Gone." Axel's whole face changed. You could see it in his eyes. Something switched on. The other guys behind him went dead silent too. This wasn't some joke or prank. This was the real deal. You know what? If you believe that regular people can step up and do incredible things when someone needs help, take a second to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Stories That Matter. Because honestly, these are the kinds of stories we need more of. The ones that show you courage doesn't always look pretty, or come with a uniform. Sometimes it shows up in leather and rides a Harley. Axel got down on one knee so he was eye level with her. Put his hand on her shoulder, real gentle-like. His voice came out low and steady. "Tell me what happened," he said. And she did. Her name was Maya. The little boy they took was Danny, her brother, only 7 years old. They were at the park maybe 3 blocks away, just playing around like kids do. She went to get some water from the fountain, literally took her eyes off him for maybe a minute. When she turned back around, he was just gone. She saw this gray car speeding off and heard him screaming for her from inside it. So she ran as fast as her legs could carry her, until she thought her lungs would explode. Nobody stopped to help. Nobody even slowed down. She kept going until she saw these bikes, and just thought maybe, just maybe, these guys would listen. By the time she finished talking, Axel's fists were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. His boys were all standing close now, totally different energy than a minute ago. No more jokes. This was serious. One of them, this guy named Colt who had this gnarly scar down his face, pulled out his phone and started making calls. Another one, they called him Reaper, was already checking his gloves and getting ready. Nobody had to say much. They all just knew what was happening next. Axel picked Maya up real careful and sat her on his bike. "Hold on tight, sweetheart," he said. "We're gonna get your brother back." And just like that, the engines fired up. All 5 bikes at once. The noise was insane, like thunder rolling through the parking lot. Windows rattled down the street. They took off in this perfect line, Maya hanging onto Axel's back for dear life, her tears drying up in the wind. They rode fast. Real fast. Probably too fast if we're being honest, but nobody cared about speed limits right then. Colt had this buddy who worked at a gas station near the park. Guy called him back and said, yeah, he'd seen that gray sedan. Older model, heading east toward the industrial area where all the old grain silos are. That part of town where nothing good ever happens after dark. When they got there, they cut the engines. The silence after all that noise felt heavy, dangerous even. The sedan was sitting there by this old beat-up warehouse, engine still ticking from being hot. Back door was cracked open a little bit. Axel made this hand signal, just 2 fingers, and his guys spread out without saying a word. They'd done this kind of thing before, apparently. Reaper went left, Colt circled right. The others kept watch. Axel moved toward the car, every step careful, deliberate. Then he heard it. A kid crying, muffled but definitely there. Danny. He didn't waste any time, just yanked that door open and there was the boy, hands tied up with rope, eyes huge and terrified. Axel's whole expression softened right there. He pulled out a pocket knife and cut through the ropes, being super gentle about it even though his hands were probably twice the size of the kid's whole arm. "You're okay now, buddy," Axel whispered. "Your sister's right here waiting for you." That's when the guy showed up. Came around the corner of the warehouse holding a tire iron, looking all wild and panicked. But when he saw what was waiting for him, 5 bikers just standing there calm as anything, the panic turned into pure fear. Colt stepped forward, blocking his path. "Bad move today, friend," he said, voice cold. The guy dropped the tire iron and tried to run. Reaper was already behind him, though. Game over. Police showed up maybe 10 minutes later, sirens going off, lights flashing everywhere. By then, the bikers were just standing by their bikes like nothing had happened. Danny was wrapped up in Axel's jacket, sitting on the bike next to Maya, who hadn't let go of her brother's hand since she saw him. Cops took statements, arrested the guy, asked a bunch of questions. The bikers didn't say much. Didn't need to, really. One of the officers, older guy with gray hair, came over to Axel and stuck out his hand. "Thanks for what you did," he said. Axel shook it once, gave a quick nod, and turned back to his bike. You could tell he wasn't doing it for the credit. Maya's mom got there a few minutes after that. Still had her hospital scrubs on and her work badge clipped to her shirt. She ran to her kids and just dropped to her knees, pulling them both in. When she looked up at the bikers, her mouth was moving, but nothing was coming out. Just tears streaming down her face. Axel caught her eye and nodded once. That was enough. Sometimes you don't need words. The bike started up again, that familiar rumble filling the air. Maya ran over one last time before they left. Stood right in front of Axel, this tiny brave kid, and said, "Thank you for listening to me." Axel smiled, the kind of smile that comes from remembering why you do what you do. "Anytime, kid," he said. Anytime. They rode off into what was left of the sunset. Not as outlaws or troublemakers, but as men who got something most people forget. Sometimes the world needs people who don't wait around for permission to do the right thing. People who move when everyone else freezes. People who ride toward the danger instead of away from it. If this story hit you in the feels, if it made you think about what real heroes look like, do me a favor and share it. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Axel's place? Would you have gone after that car too? Subscribe to Stories That Matter, because these moments deserve to be told and remembered. Later that night, the bikes were all parked outside this little diner. The guy sat inside drinking coffee, not saying much. Maya's words kept playing in Axel's head. "Thank you for listening to me." He stared out at the dark sky and thought about all the voices out there that nobody hears, the ones crying out that just get ignored. He made himself a promise right then that he wouldn't be one of the people who turns away. The world didn't change that day, but for one little girl and her brother it did. And as those engines cooled down and the stars came out, something became really clear. Kindness doesn't always show up with a smile and a hug. Sometimes it shows up with scars, leather, and the sound of a Harley. Sometimes the people who look the scariest on the outside have the biggest hearts. And sometimes all it takes is one person who's actually willing to listen.